Okay, so I talked a little bit about the east-west BRT line. The system planning we did about 10 years ago envisioned essentially two bus rapid transit lines, the east-west and the north-south line. The east-west and the north-south would kind of work together to form the backbone of the new transit system. That frequent, fast core of the network that would let people get to Madison's busiest places as fast as possible on the bus. And hopefully have the bus be a little bit more time competitive with other modes like driving and not only make it better for the people who currently use the bus, but also perhaps make it more attractive for people who don't use the bus, that maybe it's a new option that they might find attractive. North-South BRT is our second BRT line. We are just starting the planning for North-South BRT. We're just really at the opening conversation of North-South BRT. So some of you may have seen this before, but I'll just go through a review of what BRT is and how it's different from our standard local bus service. The routes are more direct and they have fewer stops. Again, that fastness, that directness with the fewer stops is fundamentally how we start getting the service to be faster, more reliable, more attractive. More frequent all-day service, typically every 15 minutes. Bus-only lanes along some of the route. We usually don't have bus lanes on the entire route, but perhaps half or a little more than half of the route where we need it on the streets that experience congestion and have space for us to have bus lanes. Easy to recognize stations and buses, priority at traffic lights, longer articulated electric buses, and faster fare pavement. Who's building bus rapid transit? The City of Madison Metro Transit is leading the BRT effort. There are several partners that are working with us to help implement the North-South BRT project. A little more than a mile of the route is within the city of Fitchburg. About 2 miles, I think, is within the city of Fitchburg. The city of Fitchburg is a key partner on this project, as we're working with them to help us plan, design, and fund the North-South BRT route. Dane County is a partner, Greater Madison MPO, Wisconsin Department of Transportation, the Federal Transit Administration. FTA will again hopefully be providing a small starts construction grant, which, if successful, would fund quite a bit of the capital improvements of the project. So this is when we planned the east-west line, if you recall, a few years ago, we didn't really have the luxury of showing people images in Madison to know exactly what it would look like. But now we do for the north-south line. So this is the stations on the east-west line, Mineral Point and High Point on the left, and Sheboygan and Eau Claire on the right. So you can see the red pavement, which will be the bus-only lanes, the platform in the middle with the raised platform height so that you can walk directly onto the bus and not wait for the ramp to deploy or stumble over the step and so forth. You see some of the station elements. Again, these stations are not complete, but you can see the canopy, and then we'll add the seating and some of the other odds and ends and electronics and so forth, real-time information signs and so forth. So our basic goal is to extend these improvements along the north-south line. So you can't get too far without looking at a map, so let's go ahead and do that. The east-west line is shown as in red here as Route A. Again, those improvements are under construction. The north-south line is shown in green. That's our current Route B. So we are now expanding those similar improvements to Route B. The route already exists. We changed our transit network in June of this year. So Route B is currently operating on that route and running those headways. What we're planning now is primarily the infrastructure, the bus lanes, the stations, the signal priority, and so forth. You'll notice that there's a shared segment between the east-west and the north-south line between downtown and the Isthmus, ending at Milwaukee Street, where the north-south line splits off. So that segment is not part of this planning process. That has been planned already. It's been designed and it's now under construction. So the buses for the north-south line will use that same infrastructure that has been built for the east-west line. So that does kind of bifurcate the north-south line into the south segment south of the UW campus and this north segment north of East Washington and Milwaukee Street. So it's kind of split geographically, but it's all part of the same route. It's all part of the same planning point. So one of the key questions that we're asking is, where should the stations be? We've sketched out some possible locations for stations along the north-south route. This is one of the fundamental questions and one of the most high-level planning pieces of this that will affect how well it's used and how people use the system going forward, is where the stations are located. So this is a key question that we're asking people to ask us, if the stations are in the correct place. Again, these locations are ones that we've sketched out that seem to make sense based on the existing ridership, the infrastructure. We want these stations to be at traffic signals or other places where people can cross the street to get to the stations, and other ridership drivers, destinations, and dense areas and things like that. So any comments on the station locations, very much welcome as we continue this conversation. A little bit about why we're doing the BRT, north-south BRT. It'll be convenient, service every 15 minutes throughout most of the day on weekdays and Saturdays. Reliability, those bus-only lanes will separate us from traffic. Not only makes the service faster, but also more reliable. When we say the bus is going to come every 15 minutes, it comes every 15 minutes when it's supposed to be there. It's not 5 minutes late, 10 minutes late, and then you have two buses coming at the same time. Comfort, BRT stations with shelter lighting, seating, near level boardings, doors on both sides of the bus so that we can use the center running platforms, and the modern 60-foot electric buses. 97,000 people and 78,000 jobs along the corridor. So one thing I like to point out is why we're doing this. It's not to make our lives easier as transit people. It's not about making it easier or more convenient for the bus drivers, or making turns easier or something. It's really about connecting people with each other, connecting people with their jobs, other places that they're going, and for all the reasons that people travel. So this is really about why we're doing this. Just a lot of destinations. It's not just about jobs, it's also about other destinations. Better for the environment with the electric buses, not only reducing those point emissions on the bus, but also attracting more people to transit. Economy, directing, this federal funding exists. It's available to communities. It comes from all of our taxes and fees at the federal level. We'd like to bring some of those benefits here to Madison. Safety, there's a lot of safety problems on our major arterials. People drive too fast. The pedestrian infrastructure is insufficient. And so not only would we like to have that better transit operating environment, but we'd also like to have safer corridors for pedestrians and bicyclists. One question that we'll be asking as we design this is, should the bus lanes be center running bus lanes as we're building on Mineral Point Road now, or the outside running bus lanes as we've historically had on streets like Mineral Point Road, parts of Park Street, and so forth. The main advantage of the center running bus lanes is it removes many of those conflicts between the bus, right turning cars, bicyclists, cars that are parked perhaps for a short period of time. Not only does that make a faster, more reliable environment for us, but it removes those conflicts for those other people and helps things flow better. So there will be a couple segments that kind of need a little bit of discussion here. South side in Fitchburg, we're anticipating that being on Fish Hatchery Road. Fish Hatchery was recently reconstructed, so we'll be retrofitting BRT into that roadway. We'll be maintaining those investments that were made. As we go up towards Park Street will be fully reconstructed. Park Street has needed that level of reconstruction for some time. The pavement is in very poor condition. The cross section is not a modern cross section. We'd like to incorporate improvements for bicyclists. We'd like to have wider terraces that have more tree canopy and so forth. So Rather than doing BRT and then undoing our BRT project with some future reconstruction, or doing a reconstruction and then trying to fit BRT into it later, we're doing both of the projects together. So that'll be a significant part of this project, and we'll have a lot more conversations about how Park Street should be redesigned and reconfigured to incorporate BRT, but also achieve some of those other goals along the corridor. Again, skipping the downtown Isthmus area because that's been complete. We'll go up Packers Avenue. As we get past Aberg, we have 3 lanes of traffic in each direction on Packers and Northport. So one concept we're exploring is converting one of those travel lanes to bus only. And then we're doing, right now we're showing a one-way loop around Troy, Green, and Northport. So that's this high-level overview of the infrastructure of the project. One thing that we're looking at is this one-way loop on Troy Drive, Green Avenue, and Northport. Right now, what we do is we snake through the Central Wisconsin Center because Knutson here is not operable by buses. So when Knutson is reconstructed next year, we will shift service to Knutson because it's a much better operating environment. We're also looking at other ways to do this loop. So there could be better ways to do it. This one-way loop is somewhat problematic. Not going to go into all the details on that, but that's a bit of a rabbit hole. We also like to look at this intersection here at Packers Northport, and this is called Darwin Road. This intersection is also very difficult to cross or use for pedestrians, bicyclists, and it's not possible for us to retrofit a station into it. We're looking at this whole kind of area and just seeing if there's some way we can do things better in there and somehow also fit in a BRT station somewhere between Dryden and that intersection. Also looking at the South Transfer Point, we have a separate project that rebuilds, reconstructs, and develops 3 parcels essentially on this northwest corner of Park and Badger. So the South Transfer Point will be replaced with something. And we are trying to determine what that something is and how all of this fits together with the other projects there. With the north-south BRT line, we're planning on a short, about half-mile extension of Route B to get it to McKee and Fish Hatchery Road. This street here is Triverton Pike. We are currently showing a terminal here on Triverton Pike and McKee, just getting it that half-mile farther so that we can connect with a lot more people in Fitchburg. It's a nice end of line for us to have the charging and end of the line facilities for the BRT project. We're also looking at a potential farther extension south of McKee into Fitchburg to serve their civic campus. This comes with a cost. The land uses there are not super supportive of that frequent high quality transit service, but it could be in the future, and it could drive that development towards those land use patterns. So we're working with the city of Fitchburg to see if this is desirable and feasible. So another thing that if you have input on, just a thought. Just to have some renderings here. I don't want to take up too much time, but this is the concept for Park Street. And again, these are just concepts. Center running bus lanes, 2 travel lanes in each direction, a wider terrace to allow trees, and then accommodating bikes with a wider sidewalk or shared use path on the west side. It's the rendering of what that would look like on station level. So this is your BRT station with your various amenities. Buses stop, doors open on the left-hand side, and then behind here would be a traffic signal with a crosswalk, and that's how you would get to and from the station. This is just a rendering of Northport. Northport Packers would be a little. This is actually Packers looking north towards Northport. This is a little bit simpler. So this is not a reconstruct. We're just taking this left-hand lane and designating it bus only. Again, just a concept that we're exploring. A little bit about funding. We can fund up to 80% of this project with federal funds. Most of those federal funds would come from what's called a Small Starts grant. That grant program is designed for transit improvements like bus rapid transit, streetcars, light rail, so forth. So that's fundamentally what that grant program is for. So we'd like to use that. The 20% local match on the capital improvements would come from a variety of local funding sources: City of Madison, Wisconsin Department of Transportation, local tax incremental financing, and the City of Fitchburg. Let's talk briefly about timeline. Again, we're just at the start of this project, trying to start the conversation. We'll have 2024 and 2025, as well as the remainder of this year, to continue that planning, move on to environmental analysis, and preliminary and final design. About 2 years of construction, similar to the East-West BRT project, and then open for service in about 4 to 5 years from now. It's a little bit hard to predict timeframes on that scale, but we hoped in the 2027, 2028 timeframe, hopefully that we will have the north-south BRT line in operation. So that's my presentation. We have all this information online. This is a slightly abbreviated presentation of what we've been giving at the public information meetings. We just had 4 public information meetings that have just wrapped. So you'll find that information here at madisonbrt.com. Again, you'll have the East-West BRT and the North-South BRT lines on that page. So you can kind of go down 2 paths and either get updates on East-West BRT and construction, or get updates on the planning process for North-South BRT. I'd also encourage you to sign up for email updates, submit any comments. You can also submit comments directly to us at brt@cityofmadison.com. If you have any other contacts here at Metro or within the city, feel free to reach out to your contacts as well. So I know our time is precious here, so I'll go ahead and see if there are any questions.
Mike, thank you very much. We really do appreciate the very thorough presentation. But Devin, for questions from me? Thank you.
Thanks, and thanks for all this great information. I had questions before you started, and most of them were answered, but one remaining. Events around the Capitol Square and in the BRT, whichever area. How will that look?
Right. So right now, Metro detours its routes for events on the Capitol Square. Most of those are farmers markets, but there are also some other events that have other impacts to our routes. There are a couple. So the BRT system can be detoured. We'd like to have those detours be minimized. We'd like to have fewer of the detours. Part of this is that reliability and having using that infrastructure that we've built. So we'd like to minimize the detours. We know that there will be some detours, so there will be some detours. When we do detour, we'd like to have the detours be as predictable and regular as possible. So one thing that we've done is we've kind of established the Broome Bassett and West Washington Avenue as kind of a standard detour for State Street events. And then the Capitol Loop will continue to kind of be the default for outer loop events. So again, we understand that there will continue to be detours. We are working to see if we can have fewer detours and more consistent detours. One of the things that helps us with this is that we have a smaller presence now, or we will have a smaller presence on the square and State Street than we did. We used to have 7 bus stops on the square. We'll now have 2 BRT stations and 1 local bus stop. We used to have 10 bus stops on State Street, and we used to serve the entire State Street. Now we will have 2 BRT stations. We'll only be served by BRT, and we'll only be on the 1, 2, and 300 blocks. So we hope that because we have a smaller presence, that will be more achievable, and we can also do things that will detour in ways that has less of an impact on people, because they really only care about the stations. They don't really care how the bus gets between those stations.
Thank you. Peggy, quick follow-up question. I know we're going to get to Julie. Mike, at one point there was a conversation, because there's so many Saturdays that it's going to be closed for events, that there was going to be a little bit of a beefier station outside on the Capitol Square, sort of near Madison Municipal Building on that side. And I can't remember where it was on Dayton. Is that still happening?
So Doty and Dayton, what we're doing is we're making some improvements to make those stops a little bit more more usable. So for example, westbound on Dayton Street, there's some terraces that are quite muddy. So we're adding some concrete in the terraces, and we'll put some benches and we'll put some benches in, but those are basically all the improvements that we're making. What we don't want to do is put up some kind of BRT station or some kind of structure that then's not used for 300 days out of the year. You know,
No.
you can kind of predict some of the problems that come with that. So that's
No.
what I'm trying to avoid.
Understand that completely, Chris, and I appreciate you using the word usable as instead of mine using beefed up. So that seems like a much more term. Julie and then Chris.
Jason, I actually took my hand down because Liz answered
sorry.
my question with that link, and I should have read that. I had read that, but it didn't like get into my head. But I will take this opportunity to thank Mike publicly for his extraordinary leadership in getting those two stations at University Bay Drive and Sherwood Boulevard going in December, because otherwise we would have those going, University Avenue going, and the sewage district closing lots of things. So not a downtown issue, but I do think traffic possibly could have backed up all the way through the isthmus without this. So Mike, thanks a ton.
It might still, we don't know. Thanks,
Well,
Julie. I appreciate that.
Thank you very much. But it certainly is a downtown issue with the amount of employees at UW Health that are connected to downtown. Chris, up next.
Thanks, and Mike, thank you. I think the new bus system that we have running now is a step in the right direction, and what you've shown us today looks even better. Looks even better. And I guess my question is just, it sounds like some determinations have been made about things like where there will be bus only lanes and where there won't, and where there will be protected shared bike and pedestrian paths, but can anything more be done to make the system just more uniform throughout? Because visualizations like the one that's on the screen right now that show those protected areas and everything looking so nice are great, and it's just it's a little frustrating to hear that those won't be everywhere. Some of the places that you mentioned that won't have that right now are kind of inhuman and unsafe, and if the new system is going to kind of lock that in, that seems like a missed opportunity. Is there anything that can be done to make it uniform?
So that's one of the three key questions that we're asking is, where should the stations go? What should the running way environment look like? And that's not only the bus only lanes, but it's also the bike and pedestrian and crossing and other pieces of it. But then the third question is, where should the route go? Is the route in the right place? Should it be extended? Is it too long, too short? Does it go the right or wrong direction? So yeah, that's definitely input that we're happy to take. None of these things have been cemented in. Again, we have to put something in front of people so that they have something to react to, but none of this is set in stone. We're just starting the conversation. I'll say Park Street is a unique opportunity because we're able to reconstruct it. So we can move curbs. We can rebuild things. There are parts of the corridor where we don't have that luxury, and we're just retrofitting the BRT line into the existing streets. I know Packers Avenue and Northport are lacking as well in some of those protected facilities. We'd like to try to close some of those gaps if we have the option, but we also do need to keep the scope of the project where it's supposed to be.
Okay, thank you.
Give and take.
Thanks.
Thank you.
It's like we're at time. Any last quick questions for Mike? Well, Mike, thank you very much for being here. We really do appreciate it. We appreciate the presentation, all the work that's happening on both the east-west and the north-south routes. We're very supportive of bus rapid transit here at DMI, and so thank you for this presentation and thank you for all your work. We really do appreciate it. Again, if you need anything in the future with connections with different stakeholders or whatever you need moving forward, please send us a note. We're happy to help.
Absolutely, thank you. And I really appreciate that support. It really means a lot, and we do need it. So thank you.
All right, Morgan, back to you. The only thing I'll say is September. That was a long time ago. November 30th, join us for our State of the Downtown, 7:45 to 9 a.m. at the Edgewater Hotel. Our 2023 report will be released that day. So Morgan, well, you get the last word.
Thank you. Yep, we've got the link in the chat to sign up for that event. Hope to see you all there. Thanks for joining today, and thank you so much to all of our presenters for sharing great information, and for all of you for the questions and discussion. So I hope you have a great Friday, and we'll see you next month. Thanks.